Hi, everyone. So Dave and Katharine are here for sort of a bit of a new segment that we have of From the Rack News, kind of just trying to summarize what's notable, newsworthy, that we think you should probably know about in case you missed it, either for our fantasy games or just sort of interest in the Elite CrossFit sphere of things.
Yeah, we follow all the accounts, so you don't have to. You can just come here and get all the news.
Kind of our goal. So the first thing, as Rogue is coming up, Jacqueline Dahlstrom and Chandler Smith both had some sort of cryptic Instagram posts. Chandler Smith was in a hospital bed, and Jacqueline Dahlstrom had a minor something done on her leg. She was working out with a compression sort of stocking on. So no additional news on what either of those are, but something to consider when you are picking your fantasy team at fantasyfantasy.com for Rogue.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's one of those things that, in terms of following the sport and covering the sport, that always seems to catch everybody's surprise is this injury news. It's unfortunate that they need to do it, but it's also the off season, which is when you get little minor procedures to clear things up. But heading into competitions, it's tough to see that the athletes may or may not be at their highest level of competition. From a fan perspective, it's certainly seeing this, or thinking back to Haley Adams at the 2020 games, where she had the severely sprained ankle going into it. It always makes you wonder, why isn't this athlete competing at the top level of their game? Well, it's because that injury news isn't disclosed at all, which you would see kind of in a NFL or NHL or a major sport. There's always injury updates to see there, so it makes it tough from a competition standpoint to follow there when things are not always presented. So cheers on them for presenting them. Hope the recovery is quick and they're able to compete at 100% or as close to 100% as Rogue as they can. It's just maybe something to the CrossFit HQ and these other major events can take a look at going forward.
Yeah. Injury disclosure is something that only comes in sort of, team sports, not really individual sports in terms of player associations and things. But for now, we've got Instagram, cryptic Instagram. And then another sort of definitely newsworthy bit is Noah Olson posted that this 2023 season could possibly be his last season as an individual athlete, which is big news.
Yeah, I think Noah Olson's been a mainstay in the sport for, I think this will be his 10th year, assuming he qualifies, as we see there. So again, it's, Olson, all the best. He's always super fun to watch at the games. I think this kind of just the leading edge of the changing of the guard for kind of the older group of individuals, especially on the men's side. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's more people than Noah Olson who are regulars on the CrossFit Games scene who have 2023 as their last year as an individual.
Yeah, I think Tim Paulson may have shared something inkling that this might be his last season too, but there's a number of them that are all up there, and there's a bunch of young guys like Sprague and that are pushing to take those spots away. So they've got some competition to keep their games athlete title active, and with the team side becoming more interesting, there is really a chance that more people do what Rich did. And I feel like Noah Olson would have a blast on a team. He had a blast at Wadapalooza on a team, so why not? Go team for another 5 years and extend your CrossFit career out, and then the team side would also just be brought up even more as it has this season.
Yeah, he definitely stressed that it was individual competition in his post. So we'll see what happens there. And I guess on Tim Paulson, he also mentioned last year heading into the games that he just wanted to give one final run to, be all in. So quitting things is hard. So we'll see what happens. But, Tim Paulson's also a favorite of ours, so he can keep going as long as he wants. And we'll be happy.
Yeah. And, he also released that she was retiring and then not retiring.
Yeah.
So, it's not always a clean break. So we'll see what happens, but good luck to Noah and anyone that's thinking it's their last season as an individual. We love watching you compete, so thank you. Okay, next in the news front is Dubai Fitness Championship becoming not a CrossFit licensed event anymore. I personally don't know what being a CrossFit licensed event entails. And these are businesses. If it's a cost to the business that isn't producing any returns, I think that's fair to cut costs given the landscape of people not having enough money and not being able to pay things and stuff. Like making smart business decisions isn't a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't see what the impact will be or see it being a big deal. Like Dubai is a well-known and established event, so if they have to pay, $5,000 to be a licensed event or whatever it may be, if they can, put that into the athlete purse, and that sounds good to me. I don't know. It'd be interesting to know what being a CrossFit affiliated event is, if it's simply just being able to call yourself a CrossFit competition versus a fitness competition. It'd be interesting to find out, but yeah, I don't think anything changes from the event itself, though.
Yeah, no, Dubai was around before it became a sanctional, and then the CrossFit Championship off-season event, and it will be around afterwards as well. It's not going to go anywhere. Just kind of, I've been playing with sort of who's going, looking at the Dubai qualifier and stuff, and to just like random stats that I think are fun and that I found that we'll do way more on Dubai after when we're getting ready to kick that game off. But 29 of 40 athletes that have qualified for Dubai are past Games athletes. Because you look at the leaderboard and it's not always like all the big names that we're used to seeing, especially on the women's side. But like 3/4 of them have been to the games, and then a few more have been on like the team side of things multiple times. There's a few that are two-time team Games athletes. So they've got some weight. Even if you don't recognize the names, they're names that you should learn about. And we've got athlete profiles on all of them.
Yeah.
So go to Fantasy Fitnessing and look up and see who's done what, because we have some off-season events and stuff like Madrid and that shows like them competing at the elite level that maybe they just haven't hit the games in their season. But that doesn't mean that they can't hang either. And then another thing as I was looking through is there's actually 21 different countries that are going to be represented at Dubai. Like from Chile and Guatemala. Like it's a big international event, which is awesome. That's great.
Yeah, it definitely brings in people from everywhere. It certainly is a destination type of event as well for a lot of people. I think it is interesting to see the diversity of the competition this year as opposed to last year. Like there was certainly a lot more, big names on both sides that attended last year versus this year. I don't know if that is simply because they didn't send out invites or forced everybody to go through the qualifier. People are just kind of tapped out at this point. So, but it is interesting to see that I think Ricky Garard's the only guy on the men's side that's going to be, or from last year, who will be back this year. Oh no, I guess Lazar Ducic is also back. So interesting to see there. And then I guess on the women's side, to see Emily Rolfe come back after she left the CrossFit Games with whatever the arm surgery she had. To see her come back after
blood clots in her arm.
Yeah. So to see her come back after, less than 4 months, I guess less than 3 months from the games by the time the qualifier happened. So it's good to see her back. And she was 6th last year at the games. So depending on how it goes, could be see her push for a podium. And then seeing Jamie Simmons back in the event as well should be fun. She's always competed well at Dubai.
Yeah, for sure. It should be a fun one. So first weekend in December.
Yes.
Put on your calendars. We will also be running a game for that. So,
I guess I
and
believe Instagram, their website, I believe, still has out of date dates. So
it has the old dates on it, but they also say 2021
right.
where they say the date. So yeah, I'm sure once they get like invites and things going, they'll get that all updated. But yes, it's first weekend in December. Okay, on to the big updates that came from CrossFit. I love that it came from CrossFit.
Yeah.
I love all the media that's come out around it, all the imagery, posts, emails. Love it. A plus communication quality. And yeah, so I guess the sort of big things, sort of standard things is open still 3 weeks. Cool. That works.
Yeah.
Athletes will have to commit to whether they're going team or individual at semis because you can't compete at a team and as an individual at a semifinal weekend. You can be an alternate on a team. So if you don't make it through your semi, you can be an alternate. Like I guess if you don't make it to the games from your semi and your team makes it to the games, you can be an alternate on a team. So that's one way to sort of play both sides. But you do need, the athletes will need to choose, which I think makes sense. I think that's a point in the season that is logical to commit. Standardized programming, the whole season should be programmed as a whole by the same people. To me, that also seems logical. That's how they used to do it. So now they're doing it again. And then sort of the more interesting pieces is that last chance qualifier is gone, and they're going to be looking at like field strength. We've spent some time trying to sort of make like a combined full ranking of athletes based on field strength of their off-season competitions, in-season competitions, all that jazz. And it's really hard because CrossFit is kind of performance at the moment that you're doing it. Past performance doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like, there's so many injuries that we don't know of. There's so much that, like, yeah, Tia might be there, but if she's injured when she's there, she's not bringing up the strength of the field. The fact that she's one of the greatest to do it doesn't mean she's at the top of her game at that semifinal. So part of me thinks it's a bit problematic because of the way the sport just is.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. I find out of all the things that they've done, this one to me is kind of the head scratcher. Like, they have standardized tests. Like, everybody is doing the same test. So why they're not just picking the next two people off the worldwide leaderboard? I know it just seems odd. Like, you just like, this is just a gimme of a decision. Like, it's not up for interpretation. It's not questionable. It's like, look, like, worldwide leaderboard, this was the top person who didn't qualify. This person's going to the games. In terms of field strength, like, it's, I don't know. We went through many iterations of this in terms of trying to calculate it, and it just, every time it would do, there's always like these anomalies that you would be like, well, like, I think probably for our first handful is like, well, Justin Medeiros was, the fittest on earth, but he's not the top guy in our rankings because he finished third in his semifinal and, hadn't really done anything else before that. But he's also the reigning fittest person on earth last year at this time. So it's like, well, how do we incorporate that? And then, yeah, like, in terms of field strength, and then especially things like the Opens, it's like, well, how do you rank the Open now when the Open doesn't matter for people? Like, I don't know, like Fikowski was 3,000 and something last year in the Open. Like, does he, tank his semifinal because his Open finish was so low? So, out of all the things, this one kind of seems like I kind of missed it, I guess, at first take, but who knows? Like, they might have a whole bunch of data engineers and, AI people who can calculate this better than the time that we put into it. But it's just
But the
open
thing
for
is,
interpretation.
like your example of Medeiros, no matter what sort of data analyst, nobody would have guessed Medeiros to be the like now 2-time fittest man on earth. There was
Yeah.
no data that would lead anyone to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Like, all right, maybe there's some AI out there that can just really guess things, and nobody knows who's hurt. There's no quantifiable like way of calculating who's injured that affects the strength. Yeah. I like that they're trying to build in the flexibility because they're getting a lot of heat because Europe should have more on the women's side, Oceania, all that, but like build in the flexibility, but don't make it a judgment call. Don't make it something that someone has to math out, that if you math out this way, you get this. If you math out that way, you get that. You standardize programming. Make a worldwide leaderboard and pick whoever's next. 100%. It's easy. Nobody can say anything.
Yeah.
And
yeah, especially
maybe the European women and Oceania, maybe they won't get the spots. Like, you just don't know.
Everybody can put together a formula that can skew things one way or another. So we'll have to wait and see. But like, if they don't publicize it beforehand, it's going to be difficult to tell. Then if there is a questionable person because whatever they weighted quarterfinals heavier than the games last year, or however they approach it, and if there's somebody who makes it versus probably somebody else, like it's going to be a thing because everything's a thing in CrossFit.
Yeah, they're opening it up to be a thing. That's what they're doing. So, I'm kind of happy last chance qualifier's gone, but like standardized tests, just take the next couple athletes, no matter where they're from.
Yeah.
So, because you could have like an athlete out of Asia that's really good, but the field strength is not that good. Like it's individual performance. It doesn't, no, mash it together, pull the next people off the leaderboard. Done. And then the next, I guess, big thing is the semifinals sort of changing. Europe's all one semi, and then North America is now 2, East and West. To me, again, given the landscape of semifinals not making money and different events not making money, have bigger events. If you're doing all this setup and paying for the equipment for 10 lanes, run more heats through those lanes. Like, why not? So I think it's smart.
Yeah, I think so. And I guess like the North American one, I think Europe, or at least the North American ones, will be run by CrossFit as well. So it isn't going to be a third party that needs to jump in and run the event and go. So I like it. I think it just again eliminates stuff. Again, they had questionable rankings going into semifinals last year, which caused a stir. So now it's just that at the time of open where you're going. So there, like it problem solved. Like I think there's people who are complaining about both sides of things. It's like last year is just like, wow, how can you ask somebody to go to Canada? That's absurd. It's like 5 weeks away. Like, how can that be possible? And now it's like, well, how can you put all the good teams in one conference because it's the East? Like, it's kind of like, come on, guys. Like, it's one way or the other. So now it's set. Like, it's sports. So I'm kind of happy to see, you'll just know and whatever. If you're in the East, that kind of sucks, but it's also CrossFit and people move across the country all the time to go to a different gym. So if making it to the games is everything that, kind of the life goal for you, and moving from Tennessee to Vegas is going to do it for you, then do it. So, but there will always be stronger and weaker divisions. What is it in?
Literally every professional sport.
Yeah.
Like NFL, AFC, NFC, baseball, American League, National League. Like, there's divisions, there's conferences, there's all of that, and some are stronger, some are weaker. The cool thing is when your favorite athletes are in each of them, just use that, complain about it. That's sports. That's like kind of half the fun of it. So the fact that it's clear, it's upfront, people know where they're going, especially for like travel plans and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they can book their stuff as soon as whatever they release, like the locations of those, and then you can have it locked down. Make sure you have cancellation if you don't make it, but like the top athletes know that they're going, so they can book it. They can be ahead of it. Their ducks can be in a row. Like, there's no scrambling. So I love that it's clear, it's out there, and now it's just a bit more like normal sports.
Yeah,
So,
like it's set in stone. As time goes on, some divisions will be stronger, some divisions will be weaker, but like whatever. Like, at the same time, like that's sports. You just need to do what it takes to get there, and just you kind of just got to deal with it in terms of like persevering. Like, making everything perfectly fair. Like, I don't know. It just also just takes some of the fun out of it. It's just like, okay, like we'll set it up. Like, it's almost turning into like an all-star game where it's like, okay, tell us the 40 athletes you want to attend, and whoever gets the most votes is going to make it. Like, come on, like, it's sports. Do the workouts. Let's go.
Well, it's sports, but then CrossFit even has the flexibility of those extra last couple spots to help make it more fair for people that are in more competitive fields, however they're going to do that. Yeah, I don't know. To me, all of this is clear. It's early. It's well communicated. We know the rule book is coming out in like a month. That's going to have like the actual specifics of everything. Everyone's always like, professionalize the sport. This is a step in the right direction.
Yeah,
I think.
No, I agree, and I like the standardization as well. Like, it's on the fence going into last year, but like 2 semifinals last year had swim events, so it's like, 8 of them you could literally not swim and qualify for the CrossFit Games, but the other 2 you would have been disqualified because you can't swim. Like, it seems like such a simple thing to do. Like, I think whatever is the Asia Invitational or Asia Championships last year, like they had 3 events with a barbell snatch. It's like, well, there's 6 events. Like, it's just a little unnecessary there. So like, standardize it, make sure everybody has the right level of or right skill set to make it to the games, and then you can build on it from the games. So it's not, seeing something that's a repeat, like whatever it was 2 years ago, and half the semifinals had a 1-rep max snatch event, and then the Saturday night event at the games was a 1-rep max snatch event. So now it'll be standardized. We'll be able to see them through, see people compete. Makes it a bit easier to gauge, where people sit going from a strength perspective into the finals, but also make sure that everybody there is going to be able to do everything at that standpoint. So you're not going to just, have somebody get to the CrossFit Games and have some massive holes because they just weren't tested.
Yeah, and I think it'll make it easier for the other semifinals that aren't being run by CrossFit. It'll be standardized for them too. It takes guesswork out. I guess in a way it puts more pressure on because they have to be able to facilitate what is programmed. But I would like to hope that CrossFit is working with their semifinal event organizers like they have in the past, and that they'll make sure that what is in the test can be tested.
Yeah.
Again, a little communication, that's not super tough to do. So, yeah.
It'll be tough. Like, I guess the only downside to that was like Torian Pro has been awesome the past couple of years. Like, hands down the most exciting semifinal, partially due to field, partially due to the actual programming and events that are in there. So like, that's always been super fun to watch. But I guess that'll be a bit of a challenge from that standpoint. But and I guess like on the other side, like maybe having consolidated semifinals in Europe and North America, at least more specifically North America, fans might actually show up to them. Like, you see, whatever Torian events in Europe, whatever, even some of the other ones, like there were fans and it was exciting to go through. And then you go, see whatever the Syndicate or MAC last year, and it's, a quarter full basketball stadium. Like, not really the atmosphere you want for one of the premier events of the sport.
Yeah, just saturation of elite athletes versus like splitting them all across that, like each of them kind of had 5 to 7 in a field of 20. Whereas now there's going to be 15-ish of them that, like, that's a heat and a bit. That means people are going to be changing out of the final heat into the like second last heat. Like, yeah, it's going to make for much more enjoyable events in North America, I think. And on the Touring Pro thing, will Touring Pro be a semifinal? Or will they, like, part ways and whoever runs Down Under or whoever ran that Australian championship as a sanctional, like, will one of those people actually step up as a semifinal organizer so Touring Pro can stay the Touring Pro? Because the Touring Pro has been around for a long time and will still be around, whether it's a semifinal or not. So, to be seen, I guess. But, so all in all, I say thumbs up. How about you?
Yeah, I got 2 thumbs up as well. So, excited for it. I think I got like 100 days to get my double unders and wall walks in order. So, countdown's on.
So many skills. So many skills. But yeah, okay, so that's our first podcast drop of From the Rack News. Hope you guys liked it. This is the stuff that we think you should know if you're following Elite CrossFit.
And From the Rack does have its own Instagram account to make things easier. So it is from.the.rack.news on Instagram. So we'll put it in the show notes so you can link to it and follow it there to get kind of the highlights as well there. Well, the highlights of the highlights of this show, but the full rundown is on there, as well as the From the Rack tab on the top of fantasyfitnessing.com.
Yes, the From the Rack tab. Just check it periodically, and hopefully we will capture everything so you don't miss it.
Yeah.
And
if you have anything that we did miss, you can just forward the post to us, or hit us up at the DM, and we'll make sure to capture it that way.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we will do this again next week. So see ya until then.